Hey everybody, thank you for watching another Sabre Limited Ask the Experts IT tips video. And today I'm going to answer the question, what is a virtual server? So let's get into it. I get asked this question pretty frequently, so I want to try and answer it for those of you who are wondering what it is. I'm Rob Jolliffe. I am an expert in supply chain and IT. I'm the owner and president of Sabre Limited, and we do ERP services and IT services mostly for manufacturing companies. Our expertise is we're dedicated to manufacturing IT services, whether that's hard IT like what we're going to get into today, or it's ERP services and business process improvement around using your ERP system. If you're interested in this video, if you find anything that I talk about interesting, please don't hesitate to book a meeting with me, and I can talk about any question you might have. Just put the question you have in the meeting when you book with me. You'll find the link down below in the description. All right, what is a virtual server? It's a question that I'm asked sometimes, and it's not a super easy answer, but I can answer it in a couple ways, and I'm going to start by doing a bit of a history lesson on the history of servers. So when you go back into the beginnings of computer science and computers, even computers used in business when they moved out of academia, computers, like the servers, filled rooms. And I remember being a young guy and going into a company, and they had this glass partitioned room with an air conditioning system in it, and they had all these big boxes inside of it. And that was basically the server room, and it had essentially one or maybe two servers in it, but it was a whole room. And obviously, if you're going to fill a server in a whole room, then you can't get each person their own computer. So that's a newer, more modern concept. In the old days, it was just one server. Even businesses couldn't always afford to have these servers. So what you ended up doing was you ended up having these single computers, these giant big room full computers, and they were shared by people. And the way they did the sharing was they would take a slice of the computer, kind of like dividing it into a pie, because the computer had all kinds of memory in it, all kinds of CPUs or microchips, processors in it, and it had hard drive space or tape space or whatever the computer had back then. And you could slice off pieces of it and allocate it to people, and they could simultaneously share it. And the amount of power that you were given, or the amount of time you were given on the computer, was related to if the entire computer ran for an hour and you got 1% of it, then you got 0.1 hour or 0.01 hours. You got less than a minute of the computer time. So this whole technology was called a hypervisor. A hypervisor is the technology that allowed you to take and slice it up into pieces. So then we introduced microcomputers. So microcomputers like Windows, actually DOS computers in the beginning, they started to come out. And by the 1990s, your average computer was just a desktop-sized computer. And by the early 1990s, I was helping companies. I had a job, and I was deploying little, IBM and HP desktop computers for people in the office. We had those big green screen monitors, and we had the computer that would sit under the desk or under the monitor. Rather than buy a large computer and everybody share it, therefore you were starting to buy each person a computer, and this changed the way we also sold servers. So servers were just the same technology. The modern server today, whether that's a Novell server, when it was early days, it was Novell that was the first one that started running on these computers, or Windows servers today, and nowadays you also have Linux. What you would buy was the box, and you'd put the server software on that one box, and that box would serve a purpose. So in a typical business that needs 3 servers, it might look like this. You might have an email server, you might have a file server, and you might have a database or an ERP server. And those 3 servers are 3 boxes in the room, and they basically serve the purposes of the users who needed those functions. Now, you would distribute your memory, your hard drive, and your CPU when you bought them. In other words, you bought them, and they were kind of like buying a car, and it has an air conditioning unit in it. And if you didn't buy it with air conditioning and you want to add it later, it was kind of difficult. But what you would do is you would have, a certain amount of RAM and hard drive space and CPUs for your email server, a certain amount for your file server, and a certain amount for your database server. But that's it. They were locked. At this point in time, these are what you've got, because it's really difficult to crack them open and change them. And so you would try and plan for a 6-year useful life of your server. You'd oversize it, but as we all know, computer technology changes really rapidly, and if you messed up those choices in the beginning, you were in big trouble. And we often messed up those choices because we underestimated how fast the things were going to change. So now, if you remember back in the day, we used this thing called a hypervisor to split the server up like pie slices so different people could use it. Well, one of the reasons that was possible was because these servers had they had so much room inside them that you had all these CPUs and memory elements and stuff that you could do that splitting for. Modern technology in the 90s, you couldn't really do that easily. It was easier to put them in their own boxes. But a microcomputer, because a microcomputer at the time with 4 or more CPU is really complicated. Like, there weren't very many that could have more than 2 CPUs in them. I saw 4, but I never really saw much more than that. I'm sure there were, but they were getting really expensive. So the nerds figured out how to put 2 CPU on a CPU. And what do I mean by that? Well, in these chips that you should be seeing a picture of right now, they can actually today, they can embed on one of these microchips, they can embed 16 CPUs, maybe 24 CPUs into these computers, into these chips. No problem. This is pretty common today, as a matter of fact. And the chips are not very big. They're probably about 2 inches by 1 inch, depending on what size of monitor you're looking at. That could be actually pretty close to the real size. But if you think about it, these are the types of chips that are in your phones, so they're not very big. And the mainframe, therefore, could be shoved down into a microcomputer case. Because the reason they were the size of rooms before is because all the circuitry that goes into those chips actually had to be wires and cables and resistors and transistors, and it was just enormous compared to what you can do today by bringing it down into that size chip. So by the early 2000s, hypervisors started to be reintroduced by different companies. Microsoft had one. The big name today is called VMware. They're one of the really large products in the market. So what you would do is you'd get one bigger computer, and then you'd create, in our case, to duplicate what we did in the past, you'd create 3 virtual servers, and each virtual server would be allocated the memory and the RAM that you were talking about. And then the main computer had a much larger amount of memory, RAM, and CPU capabilities, and that was split between the virtual servers. This is much less expensive because the case, the power supply, the circuitry inside the computer itself, there's an overhead for that. So you only got 1 of those instead of 3 of them. And likewise, the cost of memory, the cost of hard drive space is dropping within a hard drive, within a memory chip. So again, you're still saving money, because if you only have 2 32 gig memory chips in that server, it's generally cheaper than having 2 8 gig memory chips in one email server as a per gigabyte or per RAM. If you messed up the settings on the 3 virtual servers, you just adjust them. So as long as the totals are the same, are less than the whole, you're fine. You have to leave some for the main server itself that's running the hypervisor. It needs some, so there's a little bit of overhead. But the hypervisors are super efficient. They're directly giving the memory, the CPUs, and the hard drives to those virtual servers. All right. So what are the advantages of this? One large server, and I've already mentioned this, is cheaper than 3 small ones. So you end up saving money on the server costs. The virtual servers are really just files on the main server. So backing them up is really just copying those files someplace. One big file or 5 or 10 big files get copied off, and now you've got your whole virtual server on a hard drive, on a portable hard drive, and you can bring it to another server and start it up really quickly, because another advantage is that the brand of the host server, the big server that runs the virtuals, that's kind of irrelevant. I can even run it on different operating systems. So I could start with a Windows server running my virtuals and switch it to a Linux server running my virtuals in the future if I want. The virtuals themselves could be running Windows or Linux or any combination of operating systems, but the virtuals don't change. The underlying hardware, the hypervisor, takes care of making it look the same to the virtuals. So the virtuals are very easily moved around. And I can create and remove servers really quickly. So if I need a server for a general purpose, testing something, I can spin that up, create the server, use it, and then delete it later. And it takes very little time. And I didn't have to go buy a physical server to do that testing, which is a huge advantage, especially where you might be doing testing and development. You might be getting a new piece of software and you want to run it someplace temporarily to try it, but you're going to get rid of it later when you're done with that. It's way easier for us network nerds to manage this process. And so just to wrap it up, virtual servers, they actually existed long ago. They were the earliest servers that were being run by businesses used this technology that we're using today. It was way more primitive, but it was essentially the same thing. From the 90s to the 2000s, however, it became cheaper to just buy the microcomputer because the technology hadn't advanced to allow you to get a big enough core mini computer, mini server to run virtuals on it. But that was causing all kinds of problems for people. So by the 2010s, the virtual server had come back into style. The CPUs could have multiple processors on them, and now it was possible to reintroduce this technology. So today, this is the correct way to deploy servers. As a matter of fact, if a customer were to buy a server today, Microsoft gives you the software so that you can run a virtual server on a hypervisor without an extra cost. And we would deploy a server and then install a hypervisor and then install a Microsoft server on top of that, so that if something happened to the hardware, again, it's just a backup copy on a hard drive. I can bring another piece of hardware in and snap a finger basically and have it back up and running in an hour. Whereas in the old days, to do that, it could take 2 days to rebuild that server because you'd actually have to reinstall all the software, one piece of software at a time. So fantastic technology. If you like this video, if you found it informative, it helped explain what a virtual server is, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you'd like to reach out to me and have a conversation with me, you can email me at info@sabrelimited.com. I will see those emails. You can also find us at www.sabrelimited.com. And as I mentioned, in the description below is a link to my calendar. Thanks very much and have a great day.